Namaste, hello, and welcome to India Global Week 2020. Be the revival, India and a better world. I'm Priyanka Deo reporting from New Delhi, and I'm really excited. We have registered attendees from 52 countries. Just got that news in this morning. So it's truly India's global conference here. Now, follow us on India in Corp about India, and let's get started with the next session since we don't have so much time. This session is presented by EDB Singapore and Enterprise Singapore and is sponsored by India Inc. And we have two parts to this session. First, we have a spotlight speaker. So before our panel discussion, which is the second part, we have a special spotlight with Mr. Piyush Gupta, who is the CEO of the DBS Group in this session. A little bit about Mr. Piyush Gupta. He is the Chief Executive Officer and Director of DBS Group, as well as Director of DBS Bank Hong Kong Limited and the Islamic Bank of Asia Limited. Now, prior to joining DBS, Mr. Gupta was Citigroup's Chief Executive Officer for Southeast Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. And today he's going to speak on collaboration between India and Singapore, as well as share his perspectives on India. So without further ado, here is Mr. Piyush Gupta. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Priyanka. It's a pleasure to be able to speak to such a varied audience. I thought I would preface my comments on the future of finance and the potential collaboration between Singapore and India with a quick reflection on the past. Singapore and India have had tremendous linkages in the realm of finance. The Chettiars from Tamil Nadu came to Singapore in the 1820s, and till as late as the Second World War, they were the principal drivers of finance for plantations, mining, and so on and so forth. In the Second World War, actually, one of our peer companies over here, the OCBC Bank, shifted their headquarters to Mumbai during the Japanese occupation. More recently, the number of Indian companies registered in Singapore are about 9,000. They're the single largest number of companies from any foreign country. And conversely, Singapore continues to be the number one participant in the Indian economy from an FDI standpoint, upwards of $20 billion in 1819. And I think number four in terms of foreign portfolio investment, over $60 billion last year. And therefore, it's quite clear that the linkages between the two countries go back some way. More particular to us at DBS, we chose to use India as our launch platform for our DigiBank, our digital banking presence. And today we have upwards of 2 million customers. We are in 22 cities. We have 34 different branches. So it has actually been a great partnership for us. Again, conversely, State Bank of India has a qualifying full bank license in Singapore, gives them the right to do almost everything in this country. For us at DBS, in addition to the bank, we also have a large technology firm. I like to call it Apple, not Foxconn. It is an innovation hub, upwards of 3,000 engineers in Hyderabad. And to me, frankly, that's a great segue. The reality is that both India and Singapore possess a lot of really critical capacities, which are going to be crucial as we think about the future of finance. Both countries have a very powerful and well-developed technology infrastructure. India, of course, is well known and renowned for its range of software services and software activities. And Prime Minister Modi's Digital India vision has obviously captured the interest of many countries around the world. But in Singapore too, we have upwards of 500 fintech firms. And in fact, last year, the total amount of money raised by fintech in Singapore was upward of $13 billion. We have a very sophisticated and advanced technology infrastructure. Again, for us at DBS, we've often been cited as the world's best digital bank. India has a fantastic infrastructure, the India Stack, which includes both the Aadhaar KYC identification process, but also includes a world-class payment system with the UPI. Now, I point all these out because it's quite clear that when you think about the future of finance and where the world is going, these infrastructures and these capacities are going to be extremely telling. I want to point to a few fundamental changes that I see in the world of finance in the days to come. The first is quite clearly digital access. it is increasingly clear that people are shifting en masse from analog and physical presence, going to branches, dealing with the feet on street, to complete digital forms of engagement. And quite clearly, COVID has been a great accelerator of this process. Second, paperless. Already there's been a big drive towards straight-through processing and the elimination of paper. Once again, COVID is going to make a big dent. I think increasingly companies are beginning to learn, in countries are beginning to learn to deal without paper and accept electronic documents and electronic processing. And frankly, this is going to move on into physical currency itself. A third big shift is banking and finance. The future of finance is increasingly going to be around platforms and partnerships. And this is frankly something which is quite strange for most bankers, people like myself, because banking has traditionally been a direct to business or direct to consumer kind of activity. And so now to learn how to work through partnerships and platforms and ecosystems is going to be a major shift. The fourth, banking, like many other industries, is going to be very heavily data driven. Data, I often say, is not just the new oil, it's the new air. And increasingly, the capacity of data to inform customer behavior, customer offers, risk patterns, even things like AML, KYC, and compliance is going to be quite profound. And finally, I'm of the view that the fifth big change in finance that we're going to see is the idea of sustainable finance. I think the new economies and the new world of finance that is going to be built is going to be green in nature and really thinking about not just environment, but also social and governance kinds of issues. More specifically, there are 3 or 4 things which I think will happen over the next 3-5 years. Number one, I do think that there will be a continued interest and take up of cryptocurrencies, not necessarily Ripple or third-party currencies, but more likely central bank issued digital currency. There are already a lot of central banks interested in that, and I'm going to come back to the theme in a minute. Second, I do think that blockchain will finally start making an impact. Distributed ledgers have a lot of capacities to be able to authenticate transactions and to store value. One of the challenges, of course, has been that getting broad-scale acceptance takes time. But today, the increasing use cases, some of them closed private wall use cases, some are open use cases, and I do think the time for those has come. Third, I think a lot of digital infrastructure and platforms will start taking shape, particularly on a G2G basis, including, for example, cross-border payment platforms and cross-border trade platforms, and frankly, even cross-border capital raising platforms. So there are specific changes I anticipate happening over the next 3-5 years. In the context of Singapore and India, these give rise to tremendous opportunity. And there are 5, again, specific suggestions I would like to make. First, I think on the payment space, we have made some good starts. When Prime Minister Modi was here, we showcased connecting RuPay from India into nets in Singapore. In fact, just yesterday, day before July 7th, DBS India was able to process and settle the first RuPay Nets transaction with NPCI. So it's a good start, but it needs traction. So we need to push that agenda. But we also want to take it, we think we can take it one step further. The Singapore system led by the central bank runs a project called Project Thor, which is to set up a central bank digital currency method of payment or exchange with other central banks. They're currently in conversation with the Canadians. I think this would be a great project for India and Singapore to work on jointly to see how we can look at a different way of settlement of large financial flows, which takes out the inefficiencies of the traditional SWIFT-based T+2 methodologies. A second area where I think we should work much more closely together is on digitizing trade. A lot of work has been done on this in India. Both the TREDS platform, companies like Odex are digitizing customs and port-related trade. It's happening in Singapore as well with platforms like Calista and with the network trade platform. Creating end-to-end connectivity either through API architectures or other means to make sure trade flows digitally across the countries would be a worthwhile project for us to look at. In today's world where just-in-time is moving to just-in-case, such a platform would also allow us to create greater visibility and greater resilience. A third area where I think we should work together is in the area of sustainability. I mentioned this before. I'm of the view that post-COVID, there's going to be a renewed focus on making sure that the new economy and the new infrastructures we build are more sustainable, more green, and more conscious of the ESG agenda. Some of the solutions that are required are actually best found in nature-based solutions. And India is one of the best providers of the nature-based solutions. So to try and create linkages between Singapore and India, whether it's verification and tracing, whether it's platforms for carbon trading, etc., I think is a third thing we should do together. A fourth area we should work on is data exchange. Now, this is a sensitive topic. There's a large degree of data localization and data nationalism in most countries. But it's instructive that Singapore just recently signed with New Zealand and Chile something called a Digital Economy Partnership Agreement. I think this is going to be the future of free trade agreements, FTAs, to figure how you can create a capacity for data to move through trusted corridors. And if you can do that between our two countries, that will actually create a lot of opportunity for risk management in particular, but also for being able to achieve better outcomes for customers. And finally, on innovation, there's a lot of fintech activity in India. There's a lot of activity in Singapore. We in Singapore launched something called an API exchange, courtesy the central bank, which allows fintechs from different parts of the region and hopefully India to be able to plug into opportunities in this part of the world. So if we could make that come alive, that would be helpful too. I'm going to pause there. I just want to end on the notion that I'm convinced that opportunities abound, that the world of finance is changing, that the strengths that each of our countries has, Singapore and India, are extremely relevant in this changing world. The question, therefore, is can we seize this moment and seize this opportunity to lift our game and to lift our partnership to a higher level, which will be useful for both of us and help in overall revival of the region itself. Thank you for your attention.